Albert Breer makes a very strong comment in regards to if the Chicago Bears have actually improved in the 2026 offseason. We'll discuss that. Plus, more of the Chicago Bears draft plans have leaked as the Bears meet with a talented defensive tackle. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And yeah, man, we got a lot to talk about today. Two draft topics. One in Albert Breer talking about answering the question if the Chicago Bears have improved this offseason. But we're going to start off with comments from Neville Gallimore, one of the new acquisitions by the Chicago Bears, a defensive tackle that actually is a run-stopping specialist. When you look at his the skill set and what he's done best in the NFL, he talked a little bit about what he's bringing to the Chicago Bears, and he said this: being able to be effective throughout any position on the defensive line. I think my effort and my desire to compete at a high level, I think it speaks volumes. That's something I take pride in. Apart from obviously being effective as a D lineman, I think the effort and desire to be at 100% and not take plays off, I think that's something that I take pride in, that has carried me up to this point. It's been part of my journey, and I think being here is great for that. I know it's easy to say after you sign with a team that you're happy to be here, but when you look at comments from both Kobe Bryant, Devin Bush, now Gallimore, the players that the Bears signed want to be here. And it seems like they all understand, too, exactly what their role is going to be to bring to this team, right? The Chicago Bears, who we know that we need to impact our pass rush. We need to improve that pass rush pretty considerably. But one of the things that the Bears have also been pretty bad at over the last few seasons is stopping the run. The Chicago Bears were one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. We allowed 131 yards per game. So pass rush and run support have been two of the biggest concerns for the Chicago Bears this offseason, and Gallimore is here to help with that. Now, I know there are going to be some people that talk about the Bears and, getting somebody who doesn't necessarily get to the quarterback a whole lot. But I think when you look at Gallimore, is here to be a role player, and he's here to provide support and depth. He's basically coming in here to replace the role that was left by Andrew Billings. And the thing is, he's going to have a really good opportunity to do that. He did sign a 2-year, $12 million deal with the Chicago Bears, so he's going to be here for 2 years. And that's kind of where the Bears are as far as the depth defensive tackle. Now, they need to find a long-term defensive tackle. Even if Javon Dexter is going to get an extension here, they need to find a long-term mate for him, which is perfectly fine. But being able to get some depth in here and every 2 years bring a veteran in here is basically what we did with Billings. We're going to do this with Gallimore, and 2 years from now, we may do the same thing with another defensive tackle, and that's perfectly fine, right? So he's going to be, as it stands right now, a key rotational piece that is going to be – he had a career year last year with the Indianapolis Colts. And coming in now behind Grady Jarrett and Javon Dexter, we'll see with Shamar Turner if he's able to get into that rotation at all. We hope so, because you drafted Shamar Turner, and he's a guy that has a big body himself and can clog some of those lanes. But this is adding another veteran who just has you understand what he's going to do. And there's something to be said about depth pieces and that you bring to this team, and you can trust that they can do what their strength is, and that they're going to do it consistently. And hearing him say that he wants to take no plays off, he wants to give 100% effort every single game, that's exactly what we need to see from a guy that's in that role, right? Come in, you're not going to be playing every single down, but when you are in there, we need you to come in here and lock in. And when you look at it, the Chicago Bears have added a number of defensive tackles that probably aren't going to make the team. We got Gallimore. We got Kentavious Street, who's an edge and can play on the interior, which just goes to show that versatility that I've talked about that Dennis Allen is prioritizing. James Lynch, another guy that we have, right? And so we've added more depth than potential starters in this one. That's probably going to change in the NFL draft, which we'll talk about here in a second. But adding the depth there is key. And it's clear that was, Ryan Poles made a couple of key starting acquisitions in free agency, and then he made a lot of depth, which tells me that the NFL draft for the Chicago Bears is going to be a lot about finding players that can start and compete right away for this team. And I know that's caused some trepidation from some Bears fans in regards to how much does how much do we legitimately think that we can improve with betting on rookies. But like I've said many times before, we've already seen how rookies can impact the team, right? So our run struggles are legitimate. It's just as glaring as our inability to get to the quarterback. And so Gallimore is a depth acquisition, not an overall solution to that, right? And so that still leaves the Bears needing a need for real starters on this team who are going to be able to make an impact. And that gets us to our second topic. The Chicago Bears met with a Buckeye. And listen, you guys know I love my Buckeyes. Kayden McDonald before the 2026 NFL draft. And you look at Kayden McDonald, and this is a guy that instantly, day one would be a starter in the NFL. And, I know we got Grady Jarrett and Javon Dexter, but he's probably going to push one of those guys for that. The Bears need work on defense. And we all know the defensive struggles here for the Chicago Bears and how defense is this is going to be a probably very defensive-focused draft, right? But the potential in Kayden McDaniel is there for being a day one starter. Now, you look at what he's done in college, right? And I think that's where you have to start at. At being a 6'3", 326 pounds, he had 3 sacks last year, 2 forced fumbles as well. Over the course of his collegiate career, which was 3 years, only 1 year where he was a major impact starter, he had 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Most of his production came in year one. Each year, though, he had a pass deflected as well, which shows the activity that he had. And he had 65 total tackles last year. Now, I know that my stat sheet nerds, right, that don't actually watch football and focus on the stat sheet, are going to look at Gallimore and say 3 sacks. Is that somebody who's really going to come in and help the Bears a lot in what they do? And the answer is yes. You got to look at what this guy provides, right? He's a do-it-all defensive tackle. He can put pressure on the quarterback, but he's also a really good run stopper. And so when you have guys that have a combination of that, where they're good in the run and good in the pass game, that's where you're not going to get the super huge sack numbers. But he is so perfect for Dennis Allen's system, because what have we just talked about with Dennis Allen? Positional versatility in what he does. And when you look at the matchups and what you can bring, when you have somebody like a Kayden McDonald, who is a big body and who can get to the quarterback and put pressure, but also is very smart in his run defense, that's where you can get schematically creatively. And that's really what this offseason is about, right? And I truly do believe what we're going to do with our defensive acquisitions this year is add so much versatility and speed to the defense to where what we can do can vary day in and day out. That's what's going to make Dennis Allen's defense special. That's what's going to potentially make this defense overcome and not just be a takeaway machine defense, but be a functional defense day in and day out. Kayden McDonald can bring that. Now, the thing with Kayden McDonald is where he's going to get drafted at. And that's where the Bears would have to make a decision on what they're going to do with their draft. But he would have to be there at 25. This isn't a guy that's going to be there in round 2. None of that. That would be the Bears pick at round 2. I mean, at pick 25 in the first round. And the fact that the Bears have met with him already tells me a lot. That the Bears, because the Bears are very selective in who they meet. They do meet with a lot of people. They do their due diligence in a lot of different areas, and that's the thing that Ryan Poles has always done is his due diligence, and he's always looked at every single option. That's why I have the trust in him that I do. But Kayden McDonald would be somebody that you look at it in Javon Dexter's limitations, right? Like Javon Dexter isn't the best in run defense. And when you talk about a long-term pairing potentially, if Javon Dexter is going to get that contract extension with the Chicago Bears. That you want somebody who's versatile in the places that and effective in the places where Javon Dexter is weak at. And that's what Kayden McDonald would do. That would instantly be a defensive tackle pairing that they cover each other up and having a McDonald that can be solid in both areas, but is also really good in the rushing aspect of it, in the run game part of it, run defense. That is what you would want next to Javon Dexter if you're going to lock him in long term. And so I know that there's some naysayers in regards to Javon Dexter on this in this Bears fan base, and that's fair. I'm not even going to knock you guys for that and attack you guys for it. I get it. He hasn't been a perfect prospect, but I think when you look at and take away not just because I think one thing that we do is that we can get so zoomed in as fans of a team that we see just the flaws. But I think when you look at what Javon Dexter has been solid at. He's a perfectly fine starting tackle in the NFL. Now, I'm not going to say that he's somebody that you cannot possibly move on from ever. Like, I won't say that either, but he's perfectly fine in what he does well, and you just got to find out a way to complement it. And so Kayden McDaniel is the latest that get a top 30 visit with the Chicago Bears. You look at that. Also, Dan Villari, the tight end out of Syracuse, also got added to who the Chicago Bears have top 30 visits with you look at tight ends and you talk about we talked yesterday about the rumors of Cole Kmet being a cut candidate and how ridiculous I think that is. That's going to play a part into that. But so far, just to kind of recap, the Bears' top 30 visits: defensive tackle Kayden McDonald, tight end Dan Villari, linebacker Jimmy Rolder out of Michigan, right? Who set that in. He also went to high school in Chicago, so he's a local prospect there. Dazan Stribling, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss, who we already talked about how he can pair with Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. Center Yeager Burton, and then running back Seth McGowan. These are all really, really smart and intentional top 30 visits that the Chicago Bears have had here. All positions that, except for tight end, kind of make some sense when it comes down to that one. You add that to Sam Hecht, who I think if he's available there on day 2 when the Bears pick, that's going to be the Bears pick. I have no doubt about that. If Sam Hecht is on the board when the Chicago Bears pick, he will be a Chicago Bear, and he wants to be a Chicago Bear. I have no doubts about that at all. So, I think the Bears draft board is starting to line up. We're starting to see exactly kind of what the Bears have in mind. We haven't seen a safety top 30 visit yet, but that's because I think the safety prospects, you kind of all know, and maybe Ryan Poles doesn't want to show his hand there, especially if he maybe plans on drafting a safety earlier than what's expected. But, the Bears draft plans are starting to really shape up, and we're starting to see exactly what they want to do. We're just going to see if they can get it. But let me know down below, how do you feel about Kayden McDonald and the immediate impact that he can make as a starter for the Chicago Bears? Because I think that this kid can make an impact on day 1 at a position of need, and I think he can end up being one of the Bears fans' favorites when it comes down to that. But let's move on from that to a hidden gem potentially for the Chicago Bears, as the Bears reportedly have somebody on the radar that not a lot of people are talking about, and that is Indiana center Pat Coogan. Now, this is a guy who's played with the Hoosiers, right? He was all Big Ten second team. He won offensive MVP at the Rose Bowl as well. When you look at him, last season he ended the season with only allowing 10 pressures, 0 QB hits, 0 sacks, and 483 pass blocking snaps. Pro Football Focus, not that this is the end-all be-all, graded him the 14th best center in the nation out of 307 at a PFF grade of 76.8. So being 14th best out of 307 centers, it shows that you're pretty good, right? Now, Coogan is expected to be a day 3 pick, which means that if the Bears do miss out on Sam Hecht, they could potentially get Coogan there, who's going to be there on day 3, and he has the upside. Now, I think where Sam Hecht, to me, is a guy that projects as your starting center of the future, Pat Coogan could be that, but you're going to have to develop him. And that still makes some sense with us having Garrett Bradbury here for the Chicago Bears, so it's not like you have to put a lot of pressure on it right away. The Bears have other positions that they need to address: edge, safety, linebacker, maybe even wide receiver, right? But finding a future starting center is still one of the key things in this draft with the retirement of Drew Dalman. And I do think that, hey, you develop him for a year or two, and Coogan, because you have Garrett Bradbury as a floor raiser, as a veteran center, right? I don't think he's a ceiling raiser, but you have Coogan there, who a guy, again, I think the thing that stands out to me is that not allowing sacks, not allowing QB hits, not very minimal pressures. And it's not like he didn't play a lot. 483 pass blocking snaps. That's not meaning the overall offensive snaps that he played. That's just pass blocking snaps. So it's a really nice sample size. And I think when you look at offensive linemen, often you can find kind of value in offensive linemen later in the draft, especially if they weren't necessarily as heralded. So we'll see what happens there. It'll be really interesting to see if the Bears do go after Pat Coogan, a player like that in this draft, because it means that they're kind of going under the radar with it, right? And it would mean potentially that they're using their other picks for higher up for more, positions that they need starters right away, which still makes some sense. So he could be the answer, the long-term answer at center for the Chicago Bears. He wouldn't come in, and I wouldn't think he'd be a threat to take, if you get in Sam Hecht, I can see Sam Hecht being the starting center by the end of the season. If you get a Pat Coogan, it's going to take a year or two. You're going to develop him before he eventually takes over that position, which is perfectly fine. We've seen that development for offensive linemen before. But then again, you get him working with Dan Rouchar, and he could hit the ground running and be better even faster. So that's the thing. That it will be a very high upside pick. You get a guy like Pat Coogan in on day 3. That's a very high upside pick that makes a lot of sense for your team. And it's a little more of a long-term play, but you got the guy in Dan Rouchar to develop that talent. I think that's what makes the difference, where I'm perfectly fine with the Bears going more long-term outlook on some of these positions because of Dan Rouchar. And that's what really comes down to all of this for me, and why, the faith in the offensive line, even looking at Jedrick Willis as well for the Bears. Like, if Dan Rouchar signs off on it, I'm gonna pretty much I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt. And that's just that again, when you have a solid coaching staff, that's what you can do. You can give the benefit of a doubt when you have a solid coaching staff that believes that you believe in and that you believe can develop talent, identify talent, and then develop that talent as well. So we got to see, but a great under the radar potential option there for the Chicago Bears. And we just got to see if that's the direction that the Bears go. But let me know what you guys think down below. Go and look at some tape. I know for offensive linemen, the tape isn't always the most exciting to watch, right? But if you guys have an opportunity, I would really suggest going looking at that tape on Pat Coogan and seeing this is a guy that's smart. Pass blocking, run blocking. He's overall smart, doesn't allow sacks, doesn't have a false starts or anything, like doesn't get a lot of penalties. It'll be a smart play for the Chicago Bears, and he has that kind of physical makeup that you look for in centers as well. So let me know what you guys think on that one down below. But to end the show today, I want to get into these comments, I should say, from Albert Breer in regards to the Chicago Bears. He was talking about the Chicago Bears and asked if he believed that the Bears will be better in 2026 than they were in 2025, and he brought some optimism saying this. I don't think they are now, but I think that there are a good chance that they will be after the draft. I do think that Ryan Poles has done a good job. There's a little bit of recognition in the draft class is where they'll more likely find help in the draft. The edge group is really good. Now, again, there's no Jadeveon Clowney. There's no Myles Garrett at the very top of the draft, but there's depth in the second and third rounds. So they could theoretically come away with a couple of edge rushers, if they wanted to double down on the position. Meanwhile, on the flip side, there's some really good safeties at the top of this draft. There's obviously Caleb Downs. There's the Toledo kid. There's a kid from Oregon, Dylan Thieneman, but there isn't great depth. So they take care of the safety spot. They take care of the linebacker in free agency, and now that allows them to dive into, the front of the draft. And so I think that's one piece of it. Now, Albert Breer is kind of saying some of the things that I've said, right? In the sense that I do think that safeties, there are some solid safeties later in this draft, and I've seen some of your guys' comments on some safeties that can go in the round 4 and stuff like that. But if the Bears want a starting caliber safety that can start right away, that's going to kind of lead you to drafting that in the first round, which then is going to mean that you're pushing off your defensive linemen to rounds 2. Now, you do have 2 second-round picks, and I think that may be the play here for the Chicago Bears. And I don't think that's the wrong play if they get to there, right? The Bears do have lined up an opportunity to be better. I know that they've lost 6 starters. A lot of you guys in the comment section have made a lot about that, and I don't want to overlook that. But I think when you look at what the Bears are trying to change, right? Their defense was based off takeaways. We weren't a solid pass defense team. We weren't a solid run defense team. We were one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So in my mindset, not holding on to starters on that side of the ball because you want to make changes. You want to get faster. You want to be more versatile. You want to be better in coverage. You want to do those type of things. That's what the Bears have done. I've also seen some of you guys that are more worried about the cornerbacks now. I still think our cornerback group, when healthy, is going to be perfectly fine, especially with the way that Dennis Allen likes to use them, right? So I think those things are going to be fine. But overall, this draft, and I think what Albert Breer's comments say here, rather than just take the glowing part of it of saying, yeah, he thinks the Bears are going to be better in 2026, because that's all what we want to hear. But I think the more glowing part of it is that Ryan Poles, if he nails this draft, and it does put a lot of pressure to nail this draft, and the draft can be very fluid because while you can kind of look at what other teams are going to do in the draft, you don't know what trades are going to happen. That's not in your control. We've seen it before. A team can make a trade at the bottom of the first round that completely throws off the second round. It could completely throw off everything. So that's kind of where you have to have a lot of different options and a lot of different plans in the draft of what you're going to do. And that's what Ryan Poles, I think, does best at, is he has a lot of different tools in the shed that he's going to look at and options of audibles that he can make if needed, depending on what happens and what other teams do in the draft. Not necessarily be reactive, but to plan it. And that's the thing that I think makes a difference for this Bears team in this draft and what they're trying to do. So we got to see if Ryan Poles is going to be able to nail it. I think he's going to have a pretty good job, a pretty good opportunity at it, and we'll see, right? Like the when you look at how the draft board is shaking out and you look at the Chicago Bears needs and where the Bears picks are, the Bears can walk away with almost everything they need in this draft. And that's in theory, right? That's in practice, that's in projection, and we'll see if that ends up working out for the Bears. But there are a lot of reasons to believe that the Bears are going to have an opportunity here to add some depth that they absolutely need, or add some starters and some depth that they absolutely need. And how Ryan Poles hits, if he hits a home run again in this draft, pair that with what he did in the 2025 draft, those are the things that set your team up for long-term success. And where cap isn't a problem and things like that aren't a problem. So, and keep in mind, there are a lot of players in last year's draft, Shamar Turner, Ruben Hippolyte, right? Zay Frazier, that we know that on the defensive side of the ball, Dennis Allen was very excited about that we didn't even get to see. So those players still can make a big impact for the Bears next year also. So, we'll see what the Bears do. I'm really excited about getting to this draft this year and just seeing what Ryan Poles has in store for us, seeing what the draft has in store for us, and seeing what ends up happening. But let me know you guys' thoughts, as always, down below. That's going to do for today's episode, man. The Bears have to nail this draft. It can be no more misses, especially in the first 4 rounds. I think you have to hit on just about everything in the first 4 rounds in this draft. So I got to ask you guys, what's the move? Are you going all defense, mainly defense in this draft? Or is there some unexpected offensive players outside of center that you want to see the Chicago Bears draft? Drop your thoughts down in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell if you never want to miss an episode. You can follow us at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearscentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.